Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
G'day folks, Brendan at Fable Blades. How you going? This is a video reply to my friend Neil, who has posted a little discussion about his new Conan sword, the Father's Sword, which I know he's been wanting his entire life. It's an Albion Father's Sword, and he's super stoked. And he's actually purchased a Father's Sword, which I made in 2008, I think. Jeffrey Robinson did the bronzes, and I made the blade. And yeah, it's one that I made for myself, but I sold. And he's had that for like 15 years, so that's been his pride and joy. But now he's got the official Albion one, and he's just been discussing the differences. And I thought I would just show my Atlantean sword, which I made, and he can sort of compare that to his one, just for fun, just for shits and giggles. And yeah, this is again a set of bronzes by Jeffrey Robinson, which he's hand sculpted in clay. I might post some images of the sculptures in progress. So he's just referenced photos and sculpted them in clay. Again, we've made them for ourselves. I made the blades in exchange for a set of bronzes, I believe. And yeah, I've done a couple of them, and then this is like my final one, which is my keeper. It's the only sword I've got on display or that I ever intend not to sell. It's again something I've been in love with my whole life. Since a little kid, and the inspiration for my favourite He-Man, fiction, which I fell in love with when I was a little boy. And yeah, so it's that inner child thing, having that sword. And yeah, I just thought I'd give him a better look at it. So I got these nice hooks off eBay, and all the cabinet hardware. Built this box, a display case. So yeah, I think it's a fairly fitting set of hardware for it. It's just stuff you can get off eBay fairly cheaply. Built out of pine with polycarbonate window and pine wood box. So yeah, let's have a look at the sword. I'll have to check the weight spec on this. Again, it's going to be lighter than the Albion sword, because Jeffrey's managed to cast these hollow. He's actually taken some space out of the insides of these. They're actually a walled bronze. They are hollow, they're not super solid. So he's managed to shave a bit of weight off it. In contrast to the Albions, I think they're laser cut inscriptions on the Albions. This is an electrolytic etching, which is only very fine. It's just enough to sort of hook your fingernail on, but you're not going to lose your keys in there like the deeper ones. And again, this is my blade that I made myself. Jeffrey's made the bronzes. And having never handled an Albion, it's very interesting to get any information we can on those. I left a pitted finish, which is a natural byproduct of the heat treatment process. They experience massive oxidization in heat treatment, which scales and decays the surface, and I was able to keep that natural pitting to give it an antique aged look. This is not hollow ground. This is a flat bevel with extremely mild sharpening, like a secondary bevel. It's just where I've had to sharpen it. I heat treat them with a slightly blunt edge, and then I've been able to minimize the secondary beveling. And then onto the tip. Yeah, I'll have to check the weight. Now, the interesting thing about my sword is I added 7 inches to the blade. So off the top of my head, I think the blade's about 35 inches long. I'll get the specs and put them on the video, but you can see how much longer the blade is. I always felt that the Atlantean was too short. The blade came to about here, so the sharp length was about equal to the hilt length, which just to me didn't look right. So yeah, much longer blade on mine. It's still a lighter sword. It's it's heavy, but it's an amazing feeling sword. The grip I've tapered slightly, so you can see there's a slight wasting to it, just to give it a little bit more feel and a little bit more finesse, so it doesn't look too much like a hockey stick grip sort of thing, you know, like just give it a bit of style. Now the bronzes, I never actually waxed them. I put the bluing salts on them, and it left this this cloudy finish. It sort of looks a bit like verdigris that you'd get on ancient bronze. So I never waxed it, which would black it. It would wet it and it'd give it a wet look. So I never did put wax or oil on it. I've just left that sort of verdigris look on it just to give it a bit more antiquing. And the finish is painted on top. Yeah, beautiful castings by Jeffrey. He does an amazing job. When I fitted it, I filled the langettes, I guess they're called, with epoxy so that they're glued to the blades, so they don't rattle. And one of the things you notice on Neil's sword is that the blade isn't as wide as the Albion, and that's because the steel I use only comes in 70mm widths. So I have to be conservative and, you know, work with that. I wasn't able to get wide enough steel to match the Albion original blade proportions, but I've tried to make it work, you know. And when I made Neil's sword, I wasn't able to cut fullers, which I didn't figure out. Oh, I didn't get the machine for it until another year or so later. And so yeah, his doesn't have the fuller, which is you know, it's what you get when you're in your first couple of years of sword making. You do what you can. We all just use the tools we've got and the talents we've got and do the best we can with them. But yeah, his is a bloody good blade. I remember how hard it was sanding that, even though I tempered it 2 or 3 times. It was really hard and really tough, and it took a lot of work to sand it, to hand sand it. Yeah, it's a hard piece of steel on that blade, and he's mentioned that he hasn't had to sharpen it yet, even after doing a bunch of cuts. So yeah, it is a good blade. So yeah, I'm proud of that. And yeah, this is my baby, and I don't have a father's sword. I've sold the ones I've made, but I've got a hankering to get one after looking at his. But I'd probably make one again and get a set of bronzes off Jeffrey. Now Jeffrey's also done his own artistic redesigns, complete redesigns of both the Atlantean, which he calls the Antediluvian, which is a similarly themed sword but with very different sculptures. And he's also got one called the Aurochs sword, which instead of the elk head guard of the father's sword, uses an auroch skull. And yeah, so they're very cool. You have to check them out at bronzebyjeffreyjrobinson.com. Have a look at his portfolio. He's an amazing bronze sculptor and sword maker. Yeah, so yay toys. This is certainly something I won't be parting with, and it, as I say, it's my only keeper sword, so definitely need to get the father's sword. The father of Conan was actually named Niall as well, which is a bit of fun with Neil being similarly named. Yeah, hope you enjoyed a closer look at my baby. Cheers.